Alright, so in this video we are just going to start working with our chat list container. So we're just going to put a few comments there. I like to comment my work, guys, in a proper way. Alright, so this is a chat container. These are like sections for section in the main the sections of our design of our CSS. If you go to resources, CSS, SAS, remember the breakpoints, we haven't really imported this into our chat SAS. So we can do that by renaming this breakpoint, add an underscore. This indicates that this is a partial that we need. So we'll go back to our chat and just remove the test, and then on top there I'm gonna comment this saying imports. So we're just gonna add import, and then here we're gonna click that, and then we're gonna add breakpoint without the underscore, and then add a semicolon there. Okay, now that we have that covered, we can now go back to our browser, and remember we created a user called John. This user, so just click next. Then yeah, so we have a John logged into our system now, and we have to navigate to our chat page here, but we don't have this in our header. So we can add that quickly by going back to our Visual Studio. In here, in the resources, views, and then layouts, go to navigation blade, and then in here there's this link called dashboard. Just copy this whole element here, just paste it here so we can add our own chat. And then here, route name is chat. This is a named route, chat. And this chat, where it is going, basically it is, if you go back to our routes, remember we named our route here as chat, so this will take us to our chat of main there. So if we go back to our browser right now and refresh, we should have this chat here. So if we click, it's going to bring us to our previous chat component that we started creating. So real quick, we're just going to edit this because it looks so ugly right now. I don't like it. So let's just make it look more pretty. So we can go back to our Visual Studio Code, and in here we're going to close this web, close this navigation, and then in our chat.scss we're going to change a few things, like the height of this should be 85, maybe 85. You add a border radius 11 pixels, right? And here there's a double border here, so it's looking thicker than usual, this border. So we can change that by changing this border of the chat list by removing this border. Actually, let's remove this border of the chat list container, and then in here the header, let's make the header a border of the bottom instead of the top of the whole corners. And then in the chat container, let's also remove this border. I mean, you can comment it out or remove it, and then in the header add a border bottom border. All right, and then in here chat body, we can leave this one so we can see how it looks like. And in here in the chat box footer, you can add a border top. In our chat list container, actually this one should be, we can just bring this back and then add a border right, and then add a border radius inherited. Then here in the chat container, go down and then add a padding 5 pixels and 6 pixels. So if we try to go back to our Google Chrome, and by the way, make sure you have your pre-post activated here. Make sure it is opened and everything is processing everywhere. Of course, it will process automatically, but make sure it is opened and make sure it is linked as we previously shown in the previous video. So let's go back to our Google Chrome and refresh. All right, so we have something that has changed now. We have all these single borders, which is looking pretty now. We have this curve here by putting a border right. So right now in this video, we're going to focus on this part here, not this part. So let's focus on the chat list container. So we're going to first start by adding a title and an image there. So let me just go back to our Visual Studio, and then let's close this send message. Let's close the app. Let's close the chat box, and let's close the main, and then let's just remain to chat list.blade and then chat.sas. All right, so in here in the header we're going to add 2 elements. Well, let me just add a title, a div here, click here, all right, and this can be chat, and then here we can add something like image container. So make sure the container is correct, just correctly spelled. Now in here, in the image container, I'm going to add an image element. This source one, we're going to add an image from Pixum, from Lorem Pixum. Don't know if you know about Lorem, but go back to your browser in the Google Chrome, type Pixum Lorem. Then here we're going to click on the link. Basically, this website, it provides us with free random images that we can use for our test projects. So here, just copy this link. So we're just going to change the ID of this one on this 237 here. So let's go back to our Visual Studio and then paste. Right now, if I go back to our project and refresh, it's going to look, because I haven't set our styles. So, and there's a very cute dog there. Go back to our chat.scss, and in the chat list container and the header. So in here, nested under here, inside the chat list header, I'm going to add a class called title, all right, which is this one, this title, and the image container, all right. So, and then in here, that's going to add another one, make a class of it. All right, so we have the title, which is in the chat list header. Let me just add this to display, flex wrap, no wrap. All right, I'm going to add this margin left, automatic, and then margin right can be 2 pixels. Let's make this height 50 pixels, width 50 pixels, and then nested under this, under the same under the same image container, let's also nest something here called the image element. So in here I'm going to add width 100%, height 100%, border radius 50%, then border right. So now the title 2 should have font size, let's say 19 pixels, display flex, padding 5 pixels, and 6 pixels. And also we can just try to make this more by saying align items, justify content, center, text align, center. Alright, so if we go back, hopefully everything is worked fine. You can just try to refresh and voila. Okay, so now we have a good smooth flexing element here, and it is centered. The text here is centered inside this div of 50 pixels, 60. Now let's just, the image is too big, so let's just reduce it a little bit. So the image here height should be maybe 44 and 44. And if we refresh, if we come back there, refresh. Alright, so the image is like this. The chart is okay, but the image is not really okay. So we gotta center that too. So we can go back to our Chrome, our Visual Studio. In here, we're gonna copy this, cut in the image container, paste, and then on top of these two, we're gonna add a margin automatic. So the image can be centered too. Okay, so now I have a centered chart there, the title and the image. All right, so next we are going to create now the image, the chat list item, for all the conversations here, they're going to appear here. So now let's